Hello, welcome to Task TV. My name is Junay Evinç, and I co-chair the Turkish American National Steering Committee. Task TV has been hosting webinars with critical speakers on issues related to U.S.-Turkish relations and to Turkey. This is our 48th webinar since we began about 6 weeks ago. We reach about 10,000 on the first airing and up to around 250,000 viewers eventually within a few days. Today we have a very important talk on the eve of the 4th anniversary of the 15th of July military coup attempt. And today our speaker is Ms. Meryem İlayda Atlas. And I welcome her to our program. Hello, Ms. Atlas.
Hello, thank you very much.
Welcome. Before we get into the details, Ms. Atlas, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a journalist. I am working for Daily Sabah, which is an English newspaper based in Istanbul. But it's an international newspaper published in English. You can find it dailysabah.com. My position is I'm an editorial coordinator and also a columnist for the paper. And also I'm a researcher working in SETA. It's a Istanbul and Ankara-based think tank. And also we have a branch in Washington, D.C., SETA in Washington. I'm a researcher and my focus area is Russia and Eastern Mediterranean energy relations. But I believe so we will be talking about women tonight in the 4th anniversary of July 15.
True. We will be looking at that night and subsequent occurrences through the eyes of Turkish women. What were you doing that night, July 15, 2016, when all this started to develop?
Well, 2016 summer is a summer that I don't want to remember because I lost my father on June, just like a month before July 15. And for a long time, I was working like without any break. So I wanted a break and I applied to a school in Paris. It was a school on migrants in Paris, and we will be chance to visit some refugee camps around Paris and this and that. So I thought that it will be good for me to go and attend a summer school for 1 month. So I will be very, it will make up my mind after losing my father. But maybe if I arrived to Paris, hired a flat, and I just, located my school and my home. One night I came back from, there was a misattack in the 14th of July in 2016, a terrorist attack on civilians with a truck. Then after, on the next Friday, 15th of July in 2016, the day this coup attempt happened, we all visited the Paris Grand Mosque. And it was a very hard day for me because the Grand Mosque was protected by the French police with heavily armed men. And there was a very, tension in the people because Muslims were very sorry for losing 80 people with a terrorist attack in civilians. And they feel themselves sorry, and because nobody wants to happen this kind of things. And so I, earlier in this state, I faced the effects of the terrorism in another society, which is a very bad thing actually, because innocent people, civilians, feel themselves uncomfortable. And so I came home around 9, and well, I just wanted to have some tea. I was so tired. I was in another city, in another country, and I really didn't believe what was happening. It was on the on WhatsApp, on internet, on everywhere, and my internet was very limited because I was in another country. I didn't have a Wi-Fi in that home. I was only dependent on my mobile phone. What do I remember most of the time? Most of this time, nobody believed that. Let me remind you a small story about my sister. My sister was also a holiday on that night, and they were just swimming all day, having fun, and coming back to hotel room, opening the TV, and they see that there's a declaration by the coup plotters, and she thinks that it's a documentary. Nobody wanted to believe that. I didn't want to believe that. It was 2016. There was more than 36 years that we didn't face a coup d'etat. Of course, there was some intentions to intervene into the democratic process, to intervene into the political process. However, it did not happen. Also, the Turkish army, which made some coup d'etats before, 3 coup d'etats, never attacked civilians before. It wasn't Turkish army. So it's not true that the Turkish army attempted a coup d'etat. This statement is not true. We have to say that a terror group, Gülenist terror group, have a place in the Turkish army, initiated such a coup d'etat, attacking civilians with fire jets, shooting them on the streets. It was very shocking for me, for my family, for my friends, for everybody. So I was in Paris, I was alone, but I see that there were a lot of support from my friends around, doesn't matter French or Muslim. So it was very shocking. But then after, I was just using some internet, some gigabytes, and then putting myself the data off, and then putting on. But every hour it was becoming better and better, and there was a huge solidarity, unremarkable feeling of being strong, and morality and motivation among people. So it became one of the most remarkable moments marking the Turkish history. It is a very, very, unforgettable night for us. Of course, all of us, we prefer not to leave it. But after turning back to 10 days, finishing my school, because my company advised me to do that, it was also very, very disappointing for me that I heard my company was saying that the danger is still there for the next days. So there was democracy meetings in the following days, that people has huge support for more than a month. It was also unbelievable for everybody on the streets all day and showing the power of the Turkish people. And of course, I am very proud that I studied political science and history. And when I was just reading about the history of coup d'etats in Turkey and this and that, I always see Turkey was grouped with some group of states, like Latin America, in Africa, some undeveloped world, and this and that, which these groups are made the countries whose political systems are possible and open for coup d'etats, who are less democratic, who are this and that. So at that night, I think we now raised our name as a Turkey, as a country from this list, and we opened up with all of the Turkish people with a new phase in our history. And I want to add, as a last point, when I turned back from Paris, completing my school, I just from airport, I went to 3 different points in Istanbul before going my home. And I was still surprised that it was as the first day. Everybody was singing, dancing, a lot of motivation, energy in the ground. But it is also not something, maybe it was surprising and shocking for me. But when we speak with elders who have seen the previous coup d'etats, they told us, okay, we didn't resist previous coup d'etats physically, but we never accepted them. So I am very proud with my country and with my people. Turkish voter behavior is always on behalf of civilian politics, always civilian democracy. We never accepted as our norm ruling with military rule or military governments. And also, Turkish people have always voted for ballot box, not for the guns and arms.
That night, more than 250 people were killed, more than 2,000 wounded a faction within the military who later were investigated and showed that they were members of the Fethullah Gülen cult, of course, were, and they're being charged with this and prosecuted for this, were behind that, all the way to the pilots of the F-16s, to the pilots of the Cobra helicopters, to the men who were driving the tanks over people. Can you imagine, in Tiananmen Square, a man stopped a tank, but on the bridge connecting Europe and Asia, tanks rolled over people. That's how violent it was that night. Want to talk about, in the media, we do see all Turkish men in the photographs out there on the front line and resisting against this coup attempt by this cult. But we didn't see as many women in the photography that was presented in the media, but we know that the women were just as many and quite diverse, from conservative women who wear hijabs to women who are less religious, who do not wear head gear, and but all together in solidarity. Can you tell us more about that? That the fact that there were these women in solidarity on the front line, and what they were doing, what they were fighting for. I know they were from different political backgrounds, but they were fighting for democracy in Turkey, and the media's treatment of them.
Well, I should say that night, the most searched sentences in Google was "how to stop a tank" by the people. You just catch a tank, you take out the soldiers, and then you search on Google, how can we stop the tank? So it was a very, it's not easy to understand what is the motivation behind it. And when we look at these groups, as you said, that from every segment of the society, this is a fact. This is the effect I lived through. This is not something I learned from the books or political propaganda. Every segment of the Turkish society, leftists or rightists, they are against coup attempts. They are against intervening political process. This is a very important fact. So, from very young people to elder people, from women to men, they were all on the streets. And if you look at the pictures in the Turkish media or in social media, you can see a lot of women in the crowds. But however, one thing was shocking for us, that to see Turkish military vehicles, tanks, and jets are, firing to the civilians. And the second one, to read the reports of the Western media after 3 days after the coup d'etat attempt. Completely something different. What was written, what was reported, what was told in the articles was completely, most of them were fake news, and most of them are fabricated, or at least biased journalism, I would say. For in the case of women, I may refer to Foucault. There is an approach of Foucault that uses books in order to explain power, visibility, and invisibility. If you want to make, what do you want to make something visible, or what do you want to make something invisible, is political. It's about your political power. So all of the march to the Bosphorus Bridge against the coup plotters and the soldiers there started at very early hours. And in this march, from coming different places of Istanbul, it's a very cosmopolitan group. There were everybody, even people go there with their children, elder people, secular people, modern people, whatever you say, whatever you call conservative people. However, this march and this protest want to be portrayed out as some kind of radical Islamist, Daesh-like. This was the story they wanted to tell to people, because maybe they thought that the coup d'etat will be successful, and then they will just write another story. And then if it failed, and they invented another story, another dichotomy, and invested on it as saying that There were some men with bird. They were, carrying Daesh flags with Turkish flags. This has never happened. This is not one single photograph or video or evidence about that. Or USA Today wrote, just after the coup d'etat, USA Today wrote an article about there were no women on the grounds and there were some secular women in the streets and they were abused by this man. This has never happened because women, secular or conservative, with religious attire or with secular outlooking, they were together in the streets. And this picture never portrayed out as the true reality of July 15th. It is always underestimated. And also there is somehow very interesting thing. There is a strange invisibility of the Muslim woman in the eyes of the West, not only in America, but in Europe. It is Muslim women images associated with migrant women, victim, but if she wants to be an actor, if she wants to voice up, if she wants to show an agency, then she's ignored, underestimated, or became invisible quickly. And there are some reports from BBC, Independent, CNN, and in these reports, right after the coup d'etat, we see some women talking about that. I'm very afraid in this country. I'm afraid these people will come and affect me. There will be no democracy. Islam will come. This is completely pure propaganda of FETÖ. And I would advise my my colleagues working in Western media outlets that to be much more careful about Turkish society, because maybe the level of understanding and reading English 20 years ago was lower in the society. But today, younger people, everybody can read and follow that, and it is very disappointing. They are now, decreasing their own credibility. In 20 years ago, when New York Times writes something about Turkey, it was something credible. But now when it is turned to something that, they are now still manipulating about it. There is a reaction in the society about this. I don't have a problem criticizing Turkish democracy, policy, or whatever, but journalism is portraying out something as it is, not creating fake news, some false evidences, some fake consciousness in the society. But very unfortunately, I see that there is a very considerable public opinion ready to take it, ready to buy this kind of narrative and stories. So turning back to women issue, there were women in the street. Women died, women wounded, women fight for their resistance and not for this and that. They fought for their own freedom and democracy. They wanted to protect their country. That always happened like that. And we cannot group one specific woman. But what BBC done, this was the reality. But how BBC understood the reality, there was a woman wearing some kind of hijabi, all black, and she was driving a truck. You will remember her, I believe. She was driving a truck from some place to Taksim at the heart of the Istanbul, and she doesn't have a driving license, and her husband doesn't have a permission for her to drive this truck to the heart of the city, to Taksim Square. She is organizing neighborhood, young people, her next door people, and driving the truck, bringing it to Taksim, and supporting to the protest against coup d'etat. If this is not women activism, so what is women activism? But how BBC portrayed out this event as a radical woman is saying like Allahu Akbar, something like this, and then wants to create a violent society and this and that. The story was completely different how they wanted to see. And also, if there is a good thing about the Turkish society, the good thing was everybody was on the street. We have never seen that even one single positive story is not published. One single positive photograph we could not see. They were never heard, never seen. So, I'm sorry, my last word.
Go ahead, please.
Sometimes, women in Middle East, in non-European societies, non-Western societies are being criticized as being not actors, as being loyal to patriarchal system. But when they voice up, when they want to, yes, okay, I'm here, and they quickly become invisible. It's very strange.
I think there may be a continuing trend here when we read about Turkish history in the West, sometimes now due to social media and transparency in information, an easy flow of information. We see, of course, men in the Turkish War of Independence, for example, but rarely did we in the past see the women behind the Turkish War of Independence. And we see now that the ranks of the Turkish resistance against the colonial imperial powers in Anatolia were lots of women, and they were fighting right there, either with logistics or as nursing or on the front line as soldiers. It is a continuing trend, I believe, that this paradigm is ignored, that a new and false paradigm is placed in place where the women's activism, the activism of Turkish women is not made evident as much as the truth should make it be evident. Can you talk to us about, well, if we look at the Turkish culture, there is a matriarchal society, and that is from the village of tilling the fields and managing the crop, all the way to the cities of modern Turkey, where women are in executive positions and management positions. They bear the burden of livelihood, but also there's the burden of the family well-being. The mother, the sister, is taking a huge responsibility to make sure that family is on even keel and solidly existing, may that be emotionally, spiritually, physically. And so there's, to me, a huge burden on the women. And that night, when sons and daughters went to the streets, what were the mothers saying? Did the mothers join them? I'll give you an example. My mother will say, I don't, like the Spartan women of ancient Greece, say, I don't want to see my son coming back as a prisoner. I'd rather see him, on the back of a shield, having fought the good fight for my country. So what is the Turkish mother feeling, thinking during that night?
Well, as a culture, as an ancient culture in Anatolia, as you said, we have seen that mothers encourage their sons or daughters and also their husbands to fight for their freedom and independence. And specifically, the Turks never like any kind of being prisoned or colonialized or under being imperialist manipulation. This is not something that Turks would like to live in. So there is a great awareness and consciousness about this history and past. However, Turkish mother, as you said, coming from the independence for this era, this is a culture, and this is a sort of creating powerful women images for the society as role models, and it is coming from generations to generations. And the examples of it in July 15 was the mothers themselves. Let me tell you, some mothers could not go out because they have got small children, children 4 or 5 years old, so you cannot leave them if you have 2-3 children. So how can you leave them and go out the streets? But they encouraged their husbands. That did not prevent them to go. They encouraged, and they say, okay, go, I'm here with children, don't take care about us. And at that time, the fighter jets were flying on their top. So, and also, let's remember some women martyrs of July 15. Türkan Türkmen, I don't want to pronounce her name wrong. Türkan Türkmen, a 50 years old housewife in Malatya, died in July 15 and go out and wanted to defend democracy. And also another woman, Yıldız Gürsoy, who is 42 years old and working in a private company as team maker, coming from lower segments of the society, came out that night, wounded, and then stayed hospital for 1 month, for 1 week, and then we lost her also. There are also other examples that these are mothers leaving 2 children, 3 children, 4 children behind, going out in the streets and saying that maybe I may die, but I want to protect my country. This is a huge awareness and the power of the women. Also, maybe the war stories are told from the eyes of the man who is fighting in the forefront. But war is not only for war forefront. War is very different. War is an ideology. It requires a heart, motivation, logistics, many things. And we remember the War of Independence. So logistics is as important as forefront fighters, because you are creating both necessary equipment, whatever necessary, both physically or mentally, creating for these people. So this is not, I don't mean that we have a war culture, but we are coming from a nomadic society, and we are always in a crossroads of the civilizations where the clashes and conflicts are too much, comparing with the United States or some other areas of the world. It's a very, cross-cultural area. So we have also a culture of this. It's a culture of piety for ourselves. It's like believing something and living it and doing it for your country.
Right. I think the belief system is strong. Belief in God and belief in country. The activist groups that you had mentioned, they are open to women of broad diversity of lifestyles. Can you comment on the solidarity now post July 15? 4 years later, we carry the wounds of that night, and we carry the burdens of not being believed sometimes, and even being insulted, as if that night was imaginary, whereas it was quite real.
Staged. It is a staged coup. Well, you're very right. Maybe remembering July 15 is one thing, but what are we going to do next is the other thing. And this is very important. And I want, one of the biggest problem ourselves, we cannot simply accuse the West why you are not understanding us. We cannot simply accuse the Western media or public opinion that why really truly are, because we are living in a world where manipulation, social media operations are everywhere. And it was maybe in smaller scales because of technology, but it was always happened like this. It was in the Independence War as well. There were some papers thrown in from the planes to the public and saying that the United Kingdom will save you, the Queen will save you. Do not go with these, rebel people. Just meaning Kemal Atatürk and his friends. So this propaganda was always there. Maybe now scale is bigger, technology is much more accessible, but we have to find the ways to explain ourselves in a good and true, because we need to create a mutual understanding and dialogue. It's a must for us. And the current situation in the Western media is completely closed to understand the Turkish society. One of the biggest mistakes, false policies in the Western media is creating, dividing women images as secular, religious, modern, traditional. There is not a clear-cut division in families, among women, in the streets, and this and that. For example, I am now in Çanakkale. I have a different lifestyle, but this area is much, some people living in secular style. But maybe you see the outlook is different, but when you see that, you are living almost the same life in the houses when you became neighbor. And there is less prejudice in our society when we become neighbors. Of course, there is polarization, there is political polarization, but we have to keep in mind that after Clinton and Trump rivalry in 2016, the society in the United States is now, as far as I see, is much, much more divided and polarized now. And what we see in, for example, in pandemic areas, people in their apartments help the elder people over 65 years old without looking their political view, their, religious. This is not an issue of conflict within the Turkish society. This is a fabricated issue. We need to understand this. But we have also a very important duty that we have to find a way to explain ourselves. Of course, there is a debate going on in social media among some elites, among some political figures, but this is not the fight of the people, not the fight of the public. So we can say that some secular women versus some religious women. There is not such a thing in Turkish society. And many other policies that we could not, Turkey is not portrayed itself as it deserves. We deserve much more than that. But we can't simply accuse the West. Why didn't you understand the coup plot and this? And of course, there's a FETÖ propaganda still going on. There is a very, very strong and difficult process about extradition of Fethullah Gülen to Turkey. We know that these figures, members of this cult, are still very powerful in American universities and media. But we have to find a way to reach out the innocent public, good images of Turkey, good culture and tradition and history and antiquity of Turkey, whatever. We need to find a way to explain ourselves.
I think what you hit upon, and a term we've been discussing in America, we are polarized and we are feeling alone. We lost 30% of our investments in the stock crash, while some of our senators and representatives used intelligence committee information to sell their stocks prior to the crash. We have serious issues with the disparity between what the white community and the minority community in terms of how much the COVID-19 pandemic has hit the minorities. So the term we're talking about is social solidarity. And it is something we're exploring. Do we have it in the United States? Can we develop it in the United States? But what I do see in Turkey, the diversity is welcomed, and it is useful to have social solidarity during very difficult times. And as you mentioned, your neighbors, you may not have the same lifestyles, but in the end, you have similar concerns. And those concerns transcend the differences and create an atmosphere of collaboration, cooperation, fighting for the common cause. What we saw, Ms. Atlas, is that the social solidarity of the Turkish people in Turkey came all the way to the United States, not just in terms of Turkish Americans here, but the way Turkey helped America with whatever it could by supplying PPE, protective equipment, personal protective equipment to help frontline doctors, law enforcement, ambulance drivers, even help people get the necessary masks that they could not otherwise get. So can you tell us more about the outreach Turkey did based on its domestic social solidarity, how it expressed it in international social solidarity?
Well, first of all, I am very sorry for the losses of United States from COVID-19. United States lost almost 140,000 people, and it's a huge number. I'm very sorry for the losses of the country and everybody in the world, because it's a pandemic and it is very unfortunate for losing lives because of an unstoppable virus spread. In Turkey, we have 5,000 losses, but I attended a conference and they want to really how it happened, how Turkey achieved that. It's a huge country, more than 80 million people, and also cities are very crowded, overcrowded. Istanbul is like 20 million people, and it's very, very densely populated in some areas. How it is possible not to become 10,000, 20,000 people did not die? And also, how come the health system did not collapse? How come the elders were protected? I had the chance to study the issue for a webinar recently. And some people say, of course, there is not a healthy data for this to create a theory of that. But what you are saying, it's about more social cohesion and solidarity in the society, more empathy. Um, some experts saying that in order to protect yourself and your society from COVID-19 spread out, you need to have a sort of feeling of solidarity, that people have to, especially young people, empathy with others. Okay, I may be young, I may be protected. Maybe it's not a danger for me, but it's a danger for my neighbor. It's a danger for my friend's father. It's a danger for my uncle. So this is much more like countries in South Korea, in Singapore, which is not more disciplined societies. However, Turkey is a Mediterranean society. That's why we are a bit tempered people. Still, we have got lots of social cohesion and in discipline in this kind of when it is there is an urgency. Lots of as you said, cooperation and collaboration. An expert says in Turkish society there is obedience to the state when there is an emergency, and this is very important. Why it is not happened in the same way in France, in UK, and United States? There is societies are polarized and divided, and okay, looking back to Turkey, we are politically divided, but we are socially united. These societies are both politically divided, experts say, and both socially divided. People are very alone. There is a civil society system, but not there is a strong civil society and community spirit. That's why whatever coming from the state, whatever coming from others, empathy is not reflecting in the same way in the society. This is what experts say. It was an academic conference. Some people also accepted in Sabancı University. I'm not sure that we cannot measure this is true or not, but we have to explain the results now. This is what about you say about this solidarity in the streets, solidarity with others, solidarity with neighbors. There is a very good culture in Turkey about looking each other, looking after the poor, looking after your neighbor, looking after the elders. But when you look at Spain, there is now a lot of trials in Spain about some civil lawyers are trying states and going to court and saying that this is genocide. What did you do in elders? Because the 65% of the deaths are coming from elders, and in some special houses, they care houses. 65 of the all of the death toll. So it's too much, and some people are asking to the state now, what are we going to do with these elders? Now, for my generation, there is not just such a problem in Turkey because my father died, as I mentioned. He died with us, with seeing his grandsons and granddaughters around. Everybody's at home, but I'm not sure about my generation. What is next? Because Turkey is very quickly becoming a part of this Western global world and understanding, and becoming a normative lifestyles for everyone in a digital world. So I can't speak for the coming generations, but now on we never ever had a problem of elders dying in the cares houses alone. We didn't even one single case. In contrast, we know that they were spatially cared in this issue in those years, and they were now. Turkey is, I think, that awarded with something. I'm not sure about this award by World Health Organization. Thank Turkey for being so much careful about their elders and this and that. So this is a new issue, but this is very much related with the culture. And also we have to remember that we are a Mediterranean society. We are hot-blooded, high-tempered people, but this is sometimes creating problems for us, but sometimes becoming something good for us. Yes, lots of, and by the way, when you go to Greece, it's exactly you will see the same people.
Right.
It's very Anatolian culture. It's Asia Minor culture, maybe.
Well, it's right there on the crossroads, so definitely it's going to have a little bit of everything. And you mentioned that under the new conditions of the pandemic, people are dying alone, and maybe in the West that is still painful, but less traumatic. And I can only imagine how difficult it is in hot-blooded, warm, friendly, and socially engaged cultures. I cannot imagine in our culture how it is to die alone. Even my rahmetli uncle recently went to the hospital and I said, "Okay, everyone, take me home. I'm going to die at home." So he
Yes.
came home and he died, and with
Rest in peace.
all his family around him. It was that I think emphasizes the social solidarity part of the culture.
Yes.
You had mentioned Sabancı University. It seems to us in America, for Turkish Americans, I'm second generation, but we have a strong, positive, productive, fast-growing community in America. And we received from Sabancı University publications regarding the Gülen cult. It was a pictorial depiction of the night of July 15. It's a big, hefty book with very high quality photos from the night. And we provided each member of Congress and each member of the US Senate a copy of that book. It was a big undertaking with our volunteers because each book is like 10 kilos. And
Yes, I know this book.
the big white book, and we received so many thank yous. They did not know what happened that night. The media had not presented them a full, complete, honest picture of what happened that night. And today, the Turkish American National Steering Committee presented to each member of Congress and the US Senate a letter saying 4 years after, and again this year, we will bring this matter to your attention. And we refer to the Sabancı University book on the night of July 15th. Can you talk to us about what universities and think tanks and victims' rights groups in Turkey are doing individually or in relation with one another to increase the awareness of the specifics of that night? How did this all develop? How did they infiltrate the military over a course of years quietly? You know, I can read to you what comes out of the embedded sermons. Gülen says, "You must move in the arteries of the system without anyone noticing your existence until you reach all the centers of power. You must wait for the time when conditions are ripe. You must wait until such time as you have gotten all the state power, until you have brought to your side all the power of the institutions in Turkey. I trust your loyalty and secrecy. I know that when you leave here, you will conceal what I have instructed and implemented it loyally." Now, this is a sermon to instructing people to do what happened on July 15. So what falls upon with great responsibility are the victims' rights groups in Turkey. If you can comment on how they are working individually and together, our listeners would very much appreciate that.
Well, as you mentioned in this sermon, was also, we have to remember, instructing generals, high judiciary officials, judges, and very, very highly educated people, that which makes Gülen movement a cult, a very terroristic style cult, that these people even commit suicide when the time is come. They can blow up themselves because there is some. They of course they have families and their families are innocent, but their wives, their mothers, their fathers never know the face of. They have two lives. They are very good father, maybe a very good neighbor, but when it comes, they can blow themselves up. So it's very dangerous cult, and it created too much victims. 2,000 people wounded, 250 people died, and before that, they victimized people politically. They fired them out from their positions. They fire them out from military bureaucracy. So it's a very dangerous place. Now the civil society has a very good awareness on the issue. But it was back then in 2013 that nobody really understand what was they mostly people and in general segments of society uh, want to interpret the issue as a political rivalry, political conflict since 2013. But after 2016, that everybody was okay, that it's a very dangerous cult and terroristic organization. Then after we have July 15 Association, who is providing me with you that completely established association to deal with the victims' families. July 15 Association is looking after the victims and martyrs' children, families, sending them to school, finding jobs for their, because they don't have a father. Now they're finding jobs for their mothers, for their wives. And this is one of them. The society, some of them are working for philanthropic activity. July 15 Association is also a philanthropic, making philanthropic activity. And also some think tanks, like I'm working for SETA, is working on the ideological, political, economical, international political level of the FETÖ issue, because it's a very segmented and layered issue. So it's not, doesn't have one layer. It is a bureaucracy layer, judiciary layer, military level, political level. It's a civil servants level. It's very different dimensions. So we have to deal with it. One problem to dealing with such an issue is to create awareness in younger people. Because especially people, younger people, good educated, they want to feed themselves from Western media outlets, or they want to go and study in the universities and abroad. So the issue I mentioned previously, that we have to make ourselves clear in the public opinion and the public eye of the Western society, is very crucial here. Even young Turkish people are open to buy these arguments coming from the West. So they may say that, okay, July 5th, is it a stage scoop, or is it a political rivalry? I don't want to be a part of it, and this and that. So we have to make it very clear that these young people, and also people in the West with good faith, doesn't have a bias in Turkish society, doesn't have a prejudice or even sympathy, or wants to make empathy. We have to have books like this, as Sabancı University produced. We have also publications by Daily Sabah. Municipalities are working that. I was a jury of a short film competition last year. Now, the year before, I was a jury for a short stories about. So Turkish society, in municipalities, civil society, philanthropic activities, think tanks, media, political parties wanted to produce some documents, evidences, eyewitnesses. Eyewitnesses is very important. So we want to collect eyewitnesses. It will be helpful for the historians, 50 years later, 100 years later. Historians will looking at the eyewitness stories. So it's very important to produce and spread them. So I think the awareness about July 15 is very vivid, and the motivation is very high.
In America, we have victims' rights organizations, and we bring families together, families who have lost loved ones to similar circumstances, let's say violent crime. Do we have in Turkey a similar effort to help victims, family victims, talk this out, relate with one another, and heal, basically?
Well, America organizing in United States, organizing this kind of, let's say, healing process in civil society is very powerful. and the civil society is very well organized. I wouldn't say that in Turkey we are very good at this, because we have a problem of PKK in the last 40 years, and we have got thousands and thousands of people lost. And as you mentioned, mothers are, losing their husbands, losing their sons. So we need that. But as many other Mediterranean societies, as I said, this kind of post-trauma behavior is very different. This is what you're saying is very Western. Post-trauma, to speak about it, in order to heal, to understand, to share, to speak. But the behavior in our societies is much more like not to speak. Post-trauma behavior is not to speak, to ignore, to underestimate in order to continue and heal. This is a societal behavior. But I agree with you, it's a very nice thing. But this is for the first time, what you're saying is done for the July 15 victims. And I also attended a camp in Antalya with all of the families coming together, staying there for 3. Antalya is a provincial city. It's a very good summer city in the Mediterranean coast. So they gathered in this city with families in a hotel, and they stayed there for 3 days. Some journalists, some professionals, I was one of them, like some psychologists, some sociologists came together with them that will understand or orient them. Or sometimes they want to talk about the problems of their younger sons and daughters. It's okay then. Or they want to ask about the future careers of their children. For 3 days, people speak with each other, talking with each other. It's something very new in Turkey. This has happened but in our societies, when something happens bad, most of the time, as you will remember from your family, with the Turkish origin, the choice is not to speak about it too much.
True. I've always wondered about that, having my father's uncles pass away, and I remember younger generations trying to learn more about what happened in the War of Independence or in the war in Yemen, or as the Ottoman Empire was collapsing, and they just did not want to talk about it.
They believe that talking about bad memories will multiply them. But the approach you're mentioning in United States is talking about bad memories will lower them, will decrease them. So it's an approach, it's a culture, but this is also changing in Turkey. I'm pro US here in that issue. It's a very rare thing for me.
At the Turkish American Steering Committee, so are we. We want to have a written history rather than a non-written or non-oral history. We have a lot of oral history, and like I said, yes, it has its limits because, again, our elders sometimes don't want to talk about their tragedies. And they just say, the Republic was created, we move forward. And there is a great positive aspect of that. It's a very productive aspect. I mean, my children do not carry the negativity and the hostility and the sorrow of my grandparents. To the opposite, they carry the confidence of victory. The Turkish Republic was formed. Great, wonderful. So we're coming to the end of our program.
Well, may I make a mention about this written culture, because American Armenians, are coming from the same origin, from the same society.
Sure.
But when they traumatize in the American society, let's say William Soroyan, the great literature and poet, William Soroyan, when their family go there, and they have to have a feeling of they have to have a written culture. And he's one of the greatest men in the American literature. And also Peter Nahchivanyan, as in the same example, they kept talking and writing about it. So we know about many of the Armenian memorials. I'm not talking about something politics, but they wrote about their memories in Hebrew. But in their counterparts, our fathers and grandfathers, they don't have this kind of account because they don't need to. And this some kinds of requiring to create a written culture is some kind of being feeling of the minority migrant community. It's the
I would agree.
not to lose your memories, to stay there, to leave a mark. But maybe my great grandfather doesn't have a feeling to leave a mark in one part of Anatolia. Maybe your grandfather.
Well, it's funny. The elders kind of look at, you come to life. Hopefully, you're a good person, and then you pass away. And the fight against the self-ego, it requires a humility and humbleness that de-emphasizes your own written or oral history. But in the United States, at the Turkish American Steering Committee, for example, we have a program. It's called the Shoebox Program, where we say to our members, get those archival photos out, digitize them, and write your history. It's a part of the American heritage that we feel proud. I mean, we are polarized at this moment severely, and there's tremendous racism that we're seeing, that we've had and we've carried on for decades. It's become very evident to us that we have not resolved these issues. But on the other hand, in America, we have a approach that we would appreciate our heritage communities if we learn more about them, and that starts at the family level. And we want to. Yeah, we want to each family to write their own story. It has been a great opportunity, and we are very thankful, Miss Atlas, to have you with us. July 15th, Through the Eyes of Women in Turkey, was a multidimensional discussion. And we welcome your writings, your analyses, help us understand better. So to help us understand better what happened that night from far away here, we watched it on TV, and we would agree with you. We thought I was watching a documentary, and it was for real, and it was shocking. And then the delayed response, at least of my country, the United States, to commend the people of Turkey for standing up against democracy like no one ever would. And folks, this is completes Task TV's webinar for today with Ms. Meryem İlayda Atlas, a journalist and activist in Turkey. And thank you very much for joining us. You can watch this through our social media platform.
It's my great honor for Turkish National American Steering Committee to invite me here to be with you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. We thank you.
Thank you.
Good night to you in Turkey.
Good night.